Hi there, I'm Katie Daly, and I am here to present the Marketing Compliance Health Check webinar. I'm so excited to share some of the best practices that we have learned over the last 10 years working in this industry and to help you streamline and automate some of your manual processes. As a quick overview of Red Marker and who we have over a decade of experience working with highly regulated organizations. Our clients range from some trillion-dollar asset management firms to top fintech companies, healthcare providers across the US, to global insurance providers, and even renewable energy companies. All of our discoveries take a very consultative approach with our clients so we can best help fix areas that require some sort of automation and technical uplift to work smarter and not harder. So why are we here? Chances are, if you're watching this webinar, you have a process that may be manual or is not automated to its full capabilities. Working with clients around the world, I have seen various starting points where people come to us with completely manual checklists. They might have a human nuance and unstandardized approach to compliance, aka something is in a reviewer's head and not written down in a knowledge base anywhere. I have seen people with some hard-coded rules and checklists, but it's not shared internally cross-functionally, so there is a bit of a gap in the system. Or you may have completely separate systems and approaches to compliance due to acquisitions, mergers, and now you are looking to put everything in one central location. The good news is we can help with all of the above. With the manual review process, we often see some common challenges listed in those bullet points on your screen. A lot of them deal with inconsistent feedback and opinion fishing, difficulty in updating regulatory and internal changes. You might have systems that are completely separate from one another. An email to a manual review in Adobe or in an editing suite, sending back to an email, Slack channel, Jira, Monday.com, Workfront board. You probably have exposure due to lack of risk control and oversight, which then leads to a lack of scalability and, of course, future proofing if marketing volumes increase over the next few years, which I believe we all know they will be. So let's get a bit critical about your processes. When was the last time you or anyone else deeply analyzed the current review in your organization? To help with this critical analysis, Red Marker has developed a set of questions to allow you to assess the health of your current approach. So let's start with this questionnaire. The slide that you'll see here is really high-level priority questions. We're looking for quick wins and things that may be like a rock in your shoe or a thorn in your side, bothering you or the compliance reviewers every single day. So what is immediate that you can identify that needs improvement? This is probably a really easy layup where you can look like a champion internally if you were to automate or fix this process. And we encourage to start with these basics. Let's make someone's day a little bit easier. Let's make their job easier so they are all brought into the idea of streamlining and automating. In your technology stack, what are the current limitations? This can be due to separate systems, so it requires manual review, upload, download. This can be a lack of visibility across the organization. Maybe you can't talk with one another. There's a lot of different limitations that you may be experiencing. Resourcing. It's good to get a feel for your head count as to how many people are responsible for a compliance review versus how many people and submitters you have. So is this very unbalanced where we need to solve with automation instead of throwing bodies at a problem? Is it pretty even and we're just worried about future proofing if marketing headcount increases? Scalability is a big one. What is the volume of your current content? Do you expect this to increase or decrease? Accessibility. Does everyone across the organization have access to your guidelines and disclosures? But more importantly, are they easy to use? And relevancy. There's no point in updating a process that has not been looked at or a checklist that has not been fine-tuned in a few years. It's good to start with something that you know is fully updated, relevant, and will not get you in trouble with the regulators. Compliance benchmarking. These are great questions to look at to see if you can track year-over-year improvements and growth if you were to automate. And if the answer is no, we can't track that, that's even a bigger reason to automate in and of itself. Are you meeting your SLAs? Do you know your top 10 risks? Where have you got in trouble in the past? That's a really easy place to start. What is your average review time? This is often an unknown for many of my clients. This is a great one to fine tune in on so that you can automate and see that your compliance reviewers are spending less and less of their valuable time. Do you have a process to record all touch points during a review of an asset? And how do you determine process improvement year over year? After you've answered those questions, we can go into more of the nitty-gritty of standardizing your compliance requirements. Before we even chat about how to standardize and the places you should look to standardize, let's talk about the why. What are the benefits that are to be gained from standardizing your requirements? The biggest one is one central location for all of your information. If you do not have a central repository for both your content creators and your reviewers to go to find the truth of what is or is not compliant, this is the best place to start. You need to have a gold standard for the templated corrections. Updated in real time as needs change. When you have a standardized compliance repository, this is very easy to change and add in new disclosures or regulatory updates as we know things will change. Cross-functional accessibility goes a long way for improvements in communication internally. We want to uplift and enable content creators, copywriters, brand and marketers to understand how to create compliant pieces from the beginning of their process. One version of what compliance looks like by standardizing feedback. We do not want to have separate opinions within the compliance team. This is a common complaint from a lot of the marketing and brand folks that I work with. They can feel like one reviewer has a very different approach to compliance and risk tolerance than another person, and we want to level the playing field at all times. So how do we record these requirements? The best place to start is with your high priority compliance areas. Think of this as the biggest fines. Where can you get in the most trouble? Where have you gotten in trouble in the past? What are the most topical things that you should be focusing on for 2024? Once you have those high priority requirements, then you can start to standardize and template them in an Excel spreadsheet, in a Google Doc, in an Airtable, or in a more formal system with keeping the end user in mind. So just to talk a little bit more about this one, we often think as the end user as the compliance reviewer. That is the beginning user and the person who is helping to create these requirements. The end user is actually the person receiving the feedback. So in this case, it would be the content creator. The reason why we want to keep them in mind is we want to standardize the requirements in a way that they understand. They do not understand legal jargon. They did not go to law school. They do not know what it means to be compliant with certain Medicare guidelines or past performance warnings. You need to be clear, consistent, and specific in your feedback so that they understand how to be compliant. And the last piece is communicate, communicate, communicate. I cannot stress this enough. Once you template the requirements, the job is not done. You then have to distribute those requirements across all departments so that everyone understands what it means to be compliant, what it means to have an asset that will be approved. Now, on the right-hand side, I provided a quick screenshot of red marker risk requirements from our app. If we just take a look at the first one, please update the first mention of my bank money to use a trademark symbol. That is really clear. It's very specific, and it's consistent anytime we see a logo that is missing a trademark symbol. So that's very easy to understand from a content creator's perspective. The next rule down is about the phrase best credit card is highly risky. And a lot of the requirements that I see during the first discovery process often look like this. It will tell the content creator what risky is and does not provide them alternatives to what not risky and compliant is. And that is what we want to do. So we have a suggested change automatically canned within our rule using generative AI, suggesting a compliant version of that rule. Now, that's just a taste of what we can do in red marker, but you can do this in an Excel format as well. So if you do not have the budget or the capability to uplift a new system at this time, something as easy as an Excel spreadsheet can be used to standardize your requirements. I'm going to work from left to right on the screen. So let's start with product line in blue column. This is a really easy way to categorize your rules according to different products or channels that they apply to. Rarely do you have a risk requirement that applies to every single distribution channel or country or product line or intended audience. So this is providing the nuances and the complexities within your compliance requirements. The second tab over is then the compliance requirement. So if we were having a general advice warning, we know it needs to be accompanied by general advice in order to fire. Promissory statements need to be avoided. Offer periods must be current. So this is actually breaking down all of your rules and compliance requirements into specific line-by-line items. Triggers, aka conditions, when the rule should be applied or when the rule should fire. That's when you can put in your nuances there. For when we have investment language plus promissory language as a quick example, using words like promise, guarantee, will double, will triple, great returns, we know that that would then trigger the preceding compliance requirement. And the most important is the blue column all the way on the right, your feedback. What action or instruction is required if this risk is present in the document? So this is the clear, consistent, scalable feedback that you want to give to your end user. Now, if you're using a system like red marker, these requirements are automatically embed in your documents, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Google Doc, Figma Canvas, and even in the Microsoft app at all times. So the idea is we can leverage these templated requirements for content creators to pass an automated first-line review. Think of really low-hanging fruit and black and white issues that should be fixed by that marketing person. Missing disclosures and disclaimers. Really easy to just copy and paste them into the document. High-risk words and language that should be avoided at all times. Easy to fix. You can give them suggestions automatically in the feedback so they can do it before it gets to you as a compliance reviewer. Silly things like interest rates needing 2% and after the decimal place instead of 1. Words like best credit card that you saw earlier and even that trademark. Font size, proximity rules, all of that can be leveraged by the person drafting this content. If they're using Microsoft Word in this example, they can run an automated review as they're drafting the content, copy and paste the feedback, review the document again until no rules have fired. So by the time it gets downstream, that compliance person is only focusing on really high-level requirements that necessitate human review. AI cannot replace a compliance reviewer. It can only streamline and supplement your work by automating easy risks that are identified in that first line review. So let's talk about templating these requirements a little bit more. We talked about the benefits of centralizing this information, ideally in a content creation app, but we also want to benchmark these requirements to assess their effectiveness. In order to do this, you should know how often triggers are on a document, where, why, by who, right? Do you have a really specific person who is creating very high risky content that we want to train and upskill so they no longer do that? We want to monitor the updates to make sure we are in compliance with the regulators at all times. We want to monitor the approvals of these assets. Who approved them? Did it have to go through 2 or 3 rounds to get approved? When you gave feedback in the first round, was this implemented in actions? We also want to improve our SLAs by leveraging automation. And for our red marker clients, we know this can be up to 30 times faster than manual review by itself. And we want to transfer the knowledge with a seamless handover. That comes in handy for things like staff turnover, people getting promoted, leaving to another department, hiring new people in the future. If you don't have a templated or standardized place for this, then the knowledge leaves when the person leaves. We also want to communicate these requirements. So it's not good enough that we are just standardizing them and putting them into a central location. You want to ensure the communication is being sent across functions. We want to make sure that when something is updated and changed, everyone knows to expect that update and that it's changed. Ways you can do that is by providing a link to your guidelines, your playbooks, your disclosure dictionaries. You can do that even within the rule feedback itself in case there were any questions. You can ask a compliance reviewer or a product lead to regularly join your marketing team meetings. This is great just to keep everyone in the loop on upcoming regulatory changes or new content that they may see. And it's really easy to respond to specific questions to, again, help with that knowledge transfer. And the last piece is workshopping, educating cross-functionally on key requirements, not only from a compliance standpoint, but also from a marketing and brand standpoint. You want to know about new initiatives that may be coming across your desk. Are they expecting a lot of video or podcast segments to be coming up? We know that those can cause very lengthy reviews. Are they anticipating more social posts than usual for a certain event or product launch? It's really important to transfer those workshops for your cultural perspective internally. So let's move on to some frequently asked questions that I often see when talking about standardizing these requirements. I often see clients that come to Red Marker who are considering, do we outsource some of these marketing compliance checks because we're simply at bandwidth, or do we automate? And my answer depends on the size and budget of your organization. If you are a large organization of one and you only have one reviewer who is completely inundated, this is a great opportunity to see if leveraging automation and technology keeps costs low instead of outsourcing, which we know can be very expensive, or hiring a new full-time fee earner. If it is a one-off situation where maybe it's just a season that you need an extra review on and you're not looking to spend a few $1,000s, outsourcing may be a better route. I also get a question when looking at technology, why do we not recommend off-the-shelf rules or off-the-shelf templated requirements? There is a few major reasons why we don't recommend off-the-shelf rules, and we say to use your own compliance risk and your own compliance tolerance at all times. The first would be that not every organization considers risk in the same light. Everyone has a very unique approach to compliance. specifically what they are comfortable saying or doing in the marketplace. Not everyone has their disclosures written in the same way. Not everyone talks about past performance and benchmarking in the same way. This allows you to be very specific about your organization's risk tolerance, which goes a long way. Also, you want to consider your brand marketing guidelines, tone of voice, colors, font, formatting. All of these can be automated in the same templated requirements as the legal and compliance guidelines. So where there is an opportunity to automate and bring in multiple teams, you should absolutely be doing so. And you miss a lot of those fine-tuning nuances by using off-the-shelf rules. Another thing to consider with off-the-shelf rules is how were those rules trained? If you are using a tech server that has trained rules from 10 years ago, 10 years ago, what is considered compliant is not what 2024 considers compliant. So you want to be very careful about how an engine is looking at compliance requirements. The next question, how can I standardize regulations and requirements that require human judgment and are nuanced? This is a fantastic question because the answer is you cannot and you should not. There are certain rules that are great technology to look at, and there are others that are more appropriate for a human to use their judgment and expertise on. So at Red Marker, we focus on those black and white issues, things that are easily standardized, automated, and focused on that will allow you then to look at those high-level rules in a quicker manner because all of the easy black and white issues have been fixed. Requirements can change so quickly. What is best practices for keeping them up to date? Best practice would be as soon as a change has been implemented by either the regulators or internally, your template should be immediately updated. With a partner like Red Marker, we have all our users able to access intercom chat, which is an instant message to your client success manager. So your compliance rules can be updated as soon as we get the message. We also have email feedback, telephone. You can call us at any time if you want to set up a meeting or talk about those standardized processes. If you're not using a partner like Red Marker, then the feedback should be immediately put into the spreadsheet and communicated cross-functionally about what has changed and why. Last question, I have heard of companies using scoring risk. Funny enough, I just got this question this morning from another client of mine who's looking at Red Marker. We do not score risks, and the most straightforward answer is because something is either compliant or it isn't. So what is the benefit of putting a sliding scale of if something is a 1 level risk, 2, 3, 4 to level 5? If it's still risky, even though it's a level 1, it needs to be fixed and remediated. What we typically see when someone is using scoring risk, it's the real question is, how can I enable my team to use a first line review to automatically publish things to the marketplace if it is low risk? And we can certainly help with that by setting up certain product categories. If you feel that a social post is able to be published if there is no risk requirements flagged within that first line, we can certainly help with those sort of conversations, and we have clients who do that currently. If you have any other questions or you want to learn a little bit more about templating your requirements, learning about Red Marker, our rules engine, how our AI works, how the Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Google Docs ad can benefit your organization, you can email me, you can chat with me on LinkedIn. We are going to make our Excel template available to you to download so you can begin talking internally about standardizing your requirements. And of course, we are more than happy to help with any of the questions that you may come across. So thank you for spending a bit of time with me this afternoon, and I hope that you gained some new knowledge from this webinar.